Chapter 1. My Early Life. My name is David Copperfield, and I was born at midnight on a Friday in the town of Blanderstone in Suffolk. I never knew my father. He died 6 months before I was born. My mother was much too young to be a widow, and my only relative was a Miss Betsy Trotwood, my father's aunt. Miss Trotwood refused to see my father after his wedding. She didn't approve of their marriage. Great Aunt Betsy Trotwood had never met my mother, but disapproved of a young girl of 19 marrying a man twice her age. Great Aunt Betsy arrived one bright, windy March afternoon, just before I was born. My mother was sitting by the fire, feeling very sad and alone, when she looked up and saw a strange lady coming up the garden path. Although they had never met, my mother was certain that this was Miss Betsy Trotwood. This strange woman didn't ring the bell like other visitors, but peered through the glass in the front door. My mother timidly opened the door, and Miss Betsy strode into the room, frowning as she looked around. "Mrs. David Copperfield, I believe," Miss Betsy said. "Yes," said my mother faintly. "Miss Trotwood," said the visitor, introducing herself. "You have heard of me." My mother said that she had, and invited Miss Betsy into the parlor. After they were seated, my mother began to cry. "Take off your hat and let me see you," demanded the visitor. "Why, goodness me, you are still a baby." My mother was a young-looking woman, but she hung her head as if apologizing for her youth. "I am trembling," cried my mother. "I don't know what the matter is. I shall die. I am sure I shall die. I am so frightened." Miss Betsy poured my mother some tea and said, "I intend to be godmother to your daughter. I hope you'll call her Betsy Trotwood Copperfield." My mother tried to speak, but Miss Betsy stopped her. "Don't contradict me. I have no doubt that your baby will be a girl." Miss Betsy asked about my mother's life with my father. "We were very happy," said my mother. "Mr. Copperfield was very good to me." "He spoiled you, I suppose," returned Miss Betsy. My mother began to sob again. "Well, don't cry," said Miss Betsy. "You were an orphan, weren't you, and a governess?" My mother nodded. "I was a nursery governess in a family where Mr. Copperfield came to visit. He was very kind to me. He paid me a lot of attention. At last he proposed. I accepted, and we were married," said my mother. My great aunt questioned my mother about her housekeeping skills. "I kept my housekeeping book regularly and balanced it with Mr. Copperfield every night," my mother sniffled. "Well, well," said Miss Betsy, "don't cry any more. You'll make yourself ill, and that won't be good either for any of us." My mother dried her tears and explained that her husband had left her a security of £105 a year, which was just enough money to live on comfortably. Just then our servant Peggotty came to light the candles, and on seeing how ill my mother was, took her upstairs and sent her nephew to fetch the doctor. My great aunt was still there when Dr. Chelp arrived, and my mother went into labor. On the stroke of midnight I made my entrance into the world. The doctor went downstairs to speak to my aunt. "Well, madam, I am happy to congratulate you. It's over." My aunt smiled and asked, "How is she?" "Well, madam, she will soon be quite comfortable," replied Dr. Chelp. "You may visit her soon, madam. It may do her good." "She? How is she?" said my aunt sharply. "The baby, how is she?" "Madam," said the doctor, "I thought you knew. The baby is a boy." My aunt didn't speak. She put on her bonnet, walked out the door without looking back, never to return again. She vanished from our lives as suddenly as she had entered it. I remember my mother and Pigotty with fond memories. My mother and I were both a little afraid of Pigotty, but loved her for her kindness. My mother and Pigotty were so very different. Mother had pretty hair and a figure like a young girl, while Pigotty was shapeless. Her eyes were very dark, and her cheeks and arms were hard and red. One night Pigotty and I were sitting by the parlor fire waiting for my mother's return. I was reading about crocodiles and was very tired. My eyelids kept closing, and I tried to keep them open with my fingers. Pigotty, I said suddenly, were you ever married? Pigotty was so surprised she stopped sewing and sat quietly looking at me. But were you ever married, Pigotty? I asked again. You are a very attractive woman, aren't you? Me? Attractive, Master Davy? Said Pigotty. No, I am not. But what put marriage in your head? I don't know, I replied. But if you marry a person and the person dies, can you marry someone else, Pigotty? You may, says Pigotty. If you choose to, my dear, but I was never married myself and I don't ever expect to be. I finished reading about crocodiles and had just begun with the alligators when the doorbell rang. Pigotty and I went to the door and there was my mother with a gentleman. I remember he had walked home with us from church on Sunday. My mother bent down to kiss me and the gentleman patted me on the head. I didn't like him touching me and I didn't like his deep voice. As I moved away from his touch, I saw my mother was upset at my action and blushed with embarrassment. Come, let us be the best friends in the world, said the gentleman, laughing. Shake hands. My right hand was in my mother's left, so I gave him the other. Why, that's the wrong hand, Davy, laughed the gentleman. He smiled at my mother before closing the door behind him. I watched him stroll down the garden path. Pigotty looked at my mother and said, I hope you had a pleasant evening, madam. Thank you, Pigotty, my mother said cheerfully. Yes, I have had a very pleasant evening. I kissed my mother and fell into a light sleep curled up in the armchair. In the distance I could hear my mother and Pigotty both in tears and talking. It won't do, madam, it just won't do. Mr. Copperfield would never have liked this man that you are meeting so often, cried Pigotty. Don't talk to me like that, cried my mother. Why, I am so bullied by my servants. How can you say such things to me, Pigotty? You know that I haven't a single friend to turn to, and this gentleman has been very kind. Mother walked to the chair and held me in her arms. She caressed me, sobbing, my own little Davy. Am I a nasty, selfish, cruel mother? I don't love you at all, do I, Davy? Pigotty's love is much better than mine, isn't it? I drifted off to sleep in her arms and thought no more about the matter until I saw the gentleman again a week later. He was in church and walked home with us after the service. He accompanied us home from church on a few occasions, but I still didn't like him. I was jealous of him because I thought he was going to take my mother away from me. His name was Mr. Murdstone. It was one autumn morning, and I was with my mother in the front garden when Mr. Murdstone came by on horseback. He said he was going to Lowestoft to see some friends who had a yacht. He offered to take me with him. Pigotty cleaned me up, and I soon sat in front of him on his horse, trotting along on the green grass. We went to a hotel by the sea, where Mr. Murdstone met up with some friends. I was introduced to them and spent the afternoon with them. We rode home early in the evening. It was a pleasant evening, and my mother and Mr. Murdstone walked along the garden path. I watched from the kitchen window and ate my tea. When he was gone, my mother asked me about my day. I told her about Mr. Murdstone's friends and then kissed her good night and went to my bed. It was about 2 months after this trip to Lowestoft that I sat watching Peggotty sewing when she suddenly said, Master Davy, how would you like to come and spend a fortnight at my brother's house in Yarmouth? You can see the sea and the boats and the ships. You can play with Ham on the beach. I knew that Ham was Peggotty's nephew, and I thought the visit would be a lot of fun, but I wondered what my mother would say. Peggotty said that my mother would be happy for me to go away for a little holiday, as she was going to spend a fortnight with a neighbor. I woke up filled with excitement and dread as I thought that my mother would change her mind. Happily, I was wrong. The day dawned clear and bright, and I was eager to leave home. I didn't know that on my return everything would have changed. My mother kissed me goodbye as I climbed onto the carrier's cart. As I looked back and I waved, I saw Mr. Murdstone ride to her side. The ride to Yarmouth was long and tiring. We ate from Peggotty's picnic basket and slept a great deal from boredom. It wasn't until this trip that I realized Peggotty could snore so much. When we arrived in Yarmouth, I smelt the fish, the oakum, and the tar. I saw the sailors getting ready to go out in their boats. Peggotty screamed, "Here's my Ham!" Ham was a huge, strong man, over 6 feet tall, with round shoulders and curly light hair. Ham shook my hand like we were old friends and lifted me onto his back. He pointed to his house. In the distance I saw a black barge with an iron funnel sticking out of it. I could see nothing else. "That's not it," I cried excitedly. "That ship-looking thing." Ham said that it was. I was delighted at the thought of staying there. Their home was a real boat. It had a roof, a little door on the side, and little windows. It was very clean inside and as tidy as possible. I saw some lockers and boxes which were used for seats. Peggotty opened a little door and showed me my bedroom. It was the nicest little room I had ever seen, right in the stern of the boat. The walls were whitewashed, and the patchwork quilt made my eyes ache with its brightness. One thing I noticed in this delightful house was the smell of fish. Peggotty told me that her brother dealt in lobsters, crabs, and crawfish, and that the smell was always in the house. A very polite woman in a crisp white apron, together with a beautiful little girl wearing a necklace of blue beads, welcomed us. That evening, during dinner, I was introduced to Peggotty's brother, Mr. Peggotty. He was a very hairy man with a kind face. "Glad to see you, sir," said Mr. Peggotty, to which I thanked him and assured him I would be very happy in such a wonderful place. Peggotty explained that Mr. Peggotty was a bachelor and that Ham was his dead brother's son. The little girl, Emily, was his dead sister's daughter. Mr. Peggotty had adopted Emily and Ham when they had been left orphans. The lady who welcomed us into the house was Mrs. Gummidge, the widow of Mr. Peggotty's partner. Even though Mr. Peggotty was poor, he had a heart of gold. The days rushed by. Emily and I spent hours and hours walking and playing on the beach. "You are quite a sailor, I suppose," I said to Emily. "No," replied Emily, shaking her head. "I am afraid of the sea. It has been very cruel to some men. I have been seen a ship split in half. I never go out on the sea. I don't even like to swim." We walked on again, picking up shells and pebbles. I was in love with Emily and told her so. She said that she adored me, and I believed her. I enjoyed my time with Emily and Ham, but at last the day came to go home. Emily and I were very sad at parting, and I promised to write her faithfully. The same carrier's cart took us home on a cold grey afternoon. Once we arrived home, I rushed through the door shouting for my mother, but I couldn't find her in the house.